Number 10. First sighting. One of the first reported Jersey Devil sightings was in 1812 when Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon's older brother, claimed he saw the Jersey Devil while hunting in his Bordentown estate. Joseph purchased 800 acres at Bordentown, New Jersey and built himself a mansion with a beautiful landscape grounds and plenty of parkland. Then one snowy afternoon, he was hunting alone in the woods near his house when he spotted some strange tracks on the ground. They looked like the tracks of a two-footed donkey. Joseph noted that one foot was slightly larger than the other, and the tracks ended abruptly as if the creature had flown away. He stared at the tracks for a long moment, trying to figure out what the strange animal might be, and at that moment he heard a strange hissing noise. Turning, he found himself face to face with a large winged creature with a horse-like head and bird-like legs. Astonished and frightened, he froze and stared at the beast, forgetting that he was carrying a rifle. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the creature hissed at him, beat its wings, and flew away. When he reported the incident to a friend later that day, Joseph was told that he had met the famous Jersey Devil, who had haunted the Pine Barrens ever since he was born to Mother Leeds one dark and stormy night in 1735. He was impressed by the story of the Jersey Devil and kept a lookout for the creature whenever he went hunting. Number 9. Devil Craze of 1909. There was a time where it seemed like everyone was seeing the Jersey Devil. From January 16th through the 23rd, New Jersey newspaper published hundreds of claimed encounters with the Jersey Devil from all over the state. Reports even spanned as far as Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. Reports claimed that the creature attacked a trolley car in Haddon Heights and a social club in Camden. Camden police reported to have fired on the creature, but it was unaffected. People were in a panic and schools all along the Delaware River Valley were shut down. The Philadelphia Zoo even offered a $10,000 reward for the creature. While some refused to go to work, vigilantes went out to hunt the devil, but then it disappeared and life went back to normal. Number 8. Cab driver. In 1927, a cab driver got a flat tire in the middle of the night in Salem City, New Jersey. Now, years before electric streetlights, the streets would have been extremely dark and the woods of the Pine Barrens were surrounding him. He got out of the car to change the tire, but then the terrifying creature emerged from the woods and tried to attack him, screeching and screaming. The driver got back in the car, but the Jersey Devil was pounding on the roof of the car as if it was trying to get inside. The taxi driver reported the incident to the police, claiming he saw the Jersey Devil, but nothing was done about it. Number 7. Crossed Green Tree Road. In southern New Jersey, Green Tree Road is a very long street that runs through several towns. A woman named Mary Ritzer Christensen was leaving the town of Blackwood and heading towards Glassboro when she spotted a creature crossing the street in her rear view mirror. The animal was roughly 25 feet away from the back of her car. It had the head of a horse and woolly haunches like a goat, but it stood upright like a man and had a set of leathery wings. While this area had a lot of woods surrounding it, Green Tree Road does not actually run through the Pine Barrens, but based on its description, it sounds exactly like what the Jersey Devil is supposed to look like. Now, for those who believe in the existence of the Jersey Devil, they think the creature was born in the Pine Barrens, but that it has the ability to fly to other parts of New Jersey. Now, Mary told everyone she knew about the creature she spotted that night, and this story ended up being published in Weird NJ magazine. Number 6. Screams of the Devil. Riding dirt bikes and ATVs is a popular hobby in New Jersey, especially around the Pine Barren. A group of young men from there were camping in the middle of the woods and riding their bikes through the dirt trails in the 1980s. One day, their bikes suddenly stalled out at the same time, and at that moment, they heard a scream coming from the distance that did not sound human and was unlike any creature they could identify. The men dropped their dirt bikes and began running away. However, nothing was chasing after them. Several men in the group were so scared they decided to go home as soon as their bikes were working again. A few of the men were brave enough to handle it, so they decided to stay behind. Unfortunately for them, they continued to hear the screaming and screeching for the rest of the night. The Pine Barrens is popular for people who ride motorcycles because the roads are long and straight and it's rare to see any police officers who will pull you over for speeding. Biker bars are located every so many miles, so the men stopped in one of the biker bars to get a drink on their way home. They told the bartender the story, and he matter-of-factly said that was the Jersey Devil and that those kind of sounds are heard all the time around there. All I can say is terrifying. Number 5. Mysterious animal deaths. The Wharton State Forest is smack dab in the middle of the Pine Barrens, and it contains the Bastow Village, which has been intact since the 1700s. In 1980, the chief forest ranger named Alan McFarland was called out to South Jersey Farm near the Wharton State Forest. The entire pack of the farmer's pigs were killed in the middle of the night. The back of each pig's head had been eaten as if something perched on their backs and ate their brains. Their backs were scratched, but whatever ended the lives of the pigs left the rest of the body alone and moved on to the next animal in the pack. Now, this type of attack is not the normal behavior for any of the local animals. In all of his years of experience, Chief McFarland had never seen anything like it. The sight was horrifying, to say the least. The mystery has never been solved, and locals believe that the only possible explanation to this case is that the Jersey Devil must have done it, and I honestly agree with them. Number 4. Forest Ranger sighting. In 1993, a forest ranger named John Irwin was inspecting the Mesilla River, which runs through the New Jersey Pine Barrens. He was driving when he had to stop his car because there was a huge animal in the middle of the road. He described it as having thick black matted fur, but also had horns like the devil. It stood over 6 feet tall, and John and the Jersey Devil stared at each other for several minutes, and this happened years before people carried smartphones, so there'd be no way for John to capture any evidence either. He didn't move his car, afraid that it may try to attack him, and after the staring contest was over, the creature went back into the forest, and that was that. Assuming John was telling the truth, there are black bears in New Jersey, so it's possible that was a creature he saw. When they stand up, they can often be over 6 feet tall as well. However, as a forest ranger, he should be able to tell what a bear is, and there is no other creature that would possibly match this description. Number 3. Route 9 sighting. Route 9 is one of the major roads that runs alongside the Pine Barrens, and people use it all the time to go down to the Jersey Shore. One of the many sightings included in the Weird NJ book was a story from someone going by the name Sunny Zed. He wrote that it was around 10 p.m. at night, and Sunny was driving through the town of Bayville. 2 cars driving ahead of him had suddenly slammed on their brakes when a disgusting creature emerged from the woods. He described it as being hairless, with strange short ears and hooved feet. He also said that it towered over the road, standing nearly 10 feet tall. He said that it looked like every classic drawing of the New Jersey Devil that he had always seen, and that it galloped at high speeds across the highway. Now, of course, many people told Sunny that it was just a deer, but he insists that he had seen plenty of deer driving at night before, and this was absolutely no animal he'd ever seen before. Number 2. The Legend of the Smithville Inn. Fran Capella, the owner of Smithville Inn, went outside one night to put the restaurant's trash into the cans behind the inn. She looked up and saw the shadow of a winged creature looming over her. Now, she felt very calm, and instead of running away, she just continued to stare. For whatever reason, she felt that the Jersey Devil was actually guarding the Smithville Inn and protecting it like some kind of guardian angel, rather than trying to attack the patrons, which, aw, so sweet. Fran fully admits that she's a true believer in the Jersey Devil, and that she had been thinking about the legend that same day before she saw the shadow. Fran swears it's true, and she even went on record in a documentary about the Jersey Devil. And coming in at number 1, recent sighting. In 2015, people claimed that they thought they saw the Jersey Devil along Route 9 in Egg Harbor Township near a golf course. The witness, David Black, thought there was a llama standing inside its fence along the roadway until it suddenly whipped out gigantic wings and started flying away. David Black grabbed his cell phone and tried to capture a video of this creature. The video clip is very short and shows what appears to be the Jersey Devil flying across the screen, a black silhouette against a colorful sunset. There is a still photo of the same creature that is also attributed to David Black, and it kinda looks like a horned goat with wings that was thrown like a football. However, the clip also went on the internet close to Halloween, which is why many people believe that David Black is trying to prank the internet. But he told NJ.com, "I swear it's not photoshopped or a staged thing. People have said it's fake, but it's not. I'm honestly just looking for an explanation for what I saw."
Number 10. Mothman. So the Mothman is this big old flying dude with wings and red eyes. Floats around and you know what? Boo! Mothman sucks. Look, okay, I grew up in the area where this cryptid is supposedly like haunted, and you know what? Yeah, I did see him. You know, big old spooky red eyes flying around doing whatever. Oh no, he was near a bridge when it collapsed. He precipitated disaster. The only thing that actually happened to me when I saw him was just my house flooded, I failed on my final test, and my girlfriend broke up with me. I mean, who even cares, right? God, Mothman is such a loser. Oh, I'm a big scary moth, look at me. Oh, I'm mothing it up. No, I'm not bitter. Shut up. Number 9. Demon Cat. Good old Demon Cat. Making its home in Washington, D.C., this fiendish feline is known to stalk the White House and the United States Capitol building. Supposedly in the 1800s, cats were brought to the Capitol building as a means of combating the rat problem. And while they couldn't get all the politicians, some legends claim that one cat remained stalking the basements. It can only be seen prior to elections and other tragedies in Washington, supposedly having been seen before the assassinations of JFK and Lincoln. Why has this kitty stuck itself in the minds of those who have seen it? Well, apparently when spotted, this cat actually grows to massive proportions, leaping at its viewer before just vanishing. Now, some blame the Capitol Police Force's poor screening for alcoholics at the source of this misunderstanding, as when viewed from the floor, anything might appear large. But as one guard was apparently taken by a heart attack upon seeing the categorical size of such the beast, who can really say for sure? Number 8. Sewer alligators. Taking a big old bite out of the big old apple are our guys in green, the sewer gators. According to the New York Times, there's actually a massive problem with folks trying to keep alligators as pets within the city. But as for the ones that aren't caught, what might happen to their pets once they've outgrown their owners? Now, legend has it that in the 1930s, an infestation began, gators making their home within New York's stinky subsystems. Supposedly, they've clashed with the NYPD, who claimed to have vanished their bescaled opponents, though sightings have continued throughout the modern days. Likely their greatest impact was the inspiration for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, though I might just be making that up. Number 7. The Honey Island Swamp Monster. Better known as Le Bête Noire, this humanoid horror is reported to be located within the Honey Island Swamp in Louisiana. Described as walking on 2 legs and 7 feet tall, Le Bête Noire is reported to be preceded by a foul odor. Now, casts have been taken of its feet, showing a total of 4 toes, which indicates that it may not be related to humans or apes, as some legends claim that a crashed circus train may have allowed for a band of chimpanzees to escape into the wild, where they probably adapted to their environment and fell into legend. Knowing how circuses generally treat their animals, good for them. Number 6. Lava bear. Discovered in the area surrounding South Central Oregon, the lava bears are a group of extremely small bears that have been observed emerging from the lava beds common to the area. Several hunters have claimed to have caught these ferocious beasts, which initially appeared to be bear cubs but were in fact fully grown adults. Once news of this made rounds, the hunt for the bears was on, and in 1923, one was caught by a US Forest Service trapper by the name of Alfred Andrews. Andrews was offered a reward for the bear's body, but turned it down in favor of parading it around the country, making quite a chunk of change on the side, until his partner stole the bear and vanished. Several other bears have been captured, and in 1924, one of the local high schools decided that its mascot would become the lava bear. It is also still their mascot. Seriously. Number 5. The black dog. Yeah, I put this in here to contrast the demon cat because I, think they should be friends. The black dog is a demonic creature originating in Europe, most famously in the story The Hound of the Baskervilles, but it's also been cited in the States. A beast with burning red eyes, W.H.C. Pynchon wrote, "If you meet the black dog once, it shall be for joy. If twice, it shall be for sorrow, and the third time shall bring death." Demonic dogs have been spotted in Connecticut and Massachusetts, and truckers have a saying where if you see one, it's time to pull over or a crash will be the least of your concerns. Number 4. Ludwig the Bloodsucker. Back to New York, and it turns out that gators aren't the only things looking to take a bite out of streetwalkers. Described as a 3-foot-tall German man, Ludwig the Bloodsucker is reported to be a local vampire. Now, legends claim that he was too minute to take down a German man and too ugly to seduce a German woman, so he just booked it over to the States for easier pickings. Haunting the Bowery Street, several victims were left alive but incessantly mocked by the vampire, usually for their drunken stupor. Local newspapers reported about the man's habits, locating him as a German tailor by day. There are apparently even interviews where he goes on record to claim that blood is healthy and good eating. Mixed with the way that immigrants were treated at the time, I doubt that went over well. Number 3. Two-Toed Tom. Listen, there's a lot of gators in the States, but Two-Toed Tom might be the most famous. The story goes that this 14-foot alligator could be identified for having lost all but 2 toes to a trap, and would eat farmers and their livestock. Now, fed up with the beast, many brave men would band together to hunt the reptile, but whether it was ex-military marksmen or dynamite-brandishing pharmacers, none could destroy this devil. Bored with Alabama, the gator was reported to have left its hunting grounds, apparently settling for Florida, where there would be more failed attempts to take down Two-Toes. 50 years later, a series of two-toed tracks were discovered near his old hunting ground, and the legend of Two-Toed Tom marches on. Number 2. Hodag. Now, this strange creature made its home in Wisconsin, described as possessing the head of a frog, the face of an elephant, short legs with massive claws, the back of a dinosaur, and a long spiked tail. Reported by land surveyor and trusted member of the community Eugene Shepard, he rounded up a group of brave hunters to capture the beast, an attempt which apparently required the usage of dynamite. Sending a picture of its remains to the media, they declared the safety of its primary food source for all time to come, the white bulldog. Thank goodness that the white bulldog may now roam Wisconsin once more. Alright, fine, it was a big hoax, and it was a really good one. Good enough that the local town decided to build a statue in honor of the beast. They also hold a festival in its name, which I've actually been to. But the effort that went into this hoax was actually quite extensive, and when Shepard had claimed to capture the creature, he even displayed it using a puppet show, piloting a wooden facsimile of the beast. Number 1. The Jersey Devil. Here's a real classic, the Jersey Devil, known for living in Jersey. Well, okay, taste and location aside, this creature is a sight to behold, a horse-like demon with bat wings and a forked tail. It was apparently born human, the 13th offspring of Mother Jane Leeds, who had cursed the unborn upon discovery of her pregnancy. Once born, the demon was revealed in all its horror, and gave everyone in the room a highly motivated beatdown before yeeting itself up and out the chimney. There have been sightings of this creature throughout history, one of the most notable viewers being Napoleon's brother. Seriously. This creature has also been reported to be capable of surviving direct cannon fire, and in 1909 there were a slew of sightings which set off a search for the fabled devil. A search which mostly ended in vain, even though there was a $10,000 reward that was promised for live capture. And, of course, someone then tried to submit a kangaroo with fake claws and bat wings. Anyways, it's just another reason not to go to Jersey, and it's just about as good of one as any.
And we're starting off this list today with the Werewolf of Defiance. It's the summer of 1972. 2 railroad workers were hard at work on the Norfolk and Western Railway when all of a sudden, one of them, Ted Davis, looked up to see a large wolf-like creature with a wooden board grasped between its paws, which it then whacked the man in the shoulder with before turning off into the bushes to run away like a coward. 5 days later, Ted and his coworker Tom Jones returned to the railway for another day's work, hoping they wouldn't be seeing the big furry monster again. Only they did. Only this time it was a bit of a safe distance away. Not that I'd ever feel a safe distance away from a werewolf, but that's just me. And then they reported the sightings to the police. Right around this time, more and more Wolfman sightings began piling in, and locals began to panic about the potential of being mauled by a 6-foot-tall werewolf. Imagine actually feeling that was a possibility. Like you're heading out to the grocery store and you're like, damn, really hope I don't run into a lycanthrope today. That's their life apparently in Ohio. Up next we have the Loveland Frog. This mysterious creature has been reported to have been sighted in Loveland, Ohio. The amphibious creature is said to resemble a bipedal frog, standing upright on its hind legs, measuring up to 4 feet tall. Not that big, but pretty big for a frog though. Got leathery skin, webbed fingers and toes. You all know how frogs look. And it's also got those iconic glowing large eyes. The first reported sighting of the Loveland Frog was in 1955, when a man claimed to have seen 3 of them on the side of the road holding some kind of strange wand-like device. Again, only in Ohio would you spot 3 large frogs practicing magic under a bridge. I really gotta visit Ohio sometimes. It just seems like such a fantastical place. Again, Narnia got nothing on Ohio. Anyway, since that initial 1955 sighting, there have been several other ones, including one by a police officer in 1972 who reported seeing a creature fitting the description of the Loveland Frog scuttling across the road and then hopping over the guardrail into the Little Miami River. Another officer even claimed to have shot at the creature, but it escaped. Some people believe the Loveland Frog is an escaped exotic pet or mutated frog, while others speculate that it is a supernatural type of creature. At number 8 on the list, we have melonheads. The melonheads are a group of cryptids that have been reported to have been sighted in various locations in Ohio, but are primarily found in the Cleveland suburb of Kirtland. These creatures are said to be small in stature with large, bulbous heads and distorted facial features. According to legend, they were the result of an experiment gone wrong in which scientists conducted unethical experiments on orphans, resulting in the creation of these strange bobble-headed beings. Some variations of the story also claim that the melonheads are the descendants of a family who suffered from a rare genetic disorder, maybe, that caused their heads to grow abnormally large. Some even say they could be of extraterrestrial origin, which whatever they are though, I want to see one. I'm telling you, I'm coming to Ohio to go on a full cryptid scavenger hunt, and I'd better see me a weird deformed melonhead. At number 7, it's Bessie. The Bessie Lake Monster, or the Lake Erie Monster. It's a legendary creature that is said to inhabit Lake Erie. The creature is described as a big, similar in appearance to Loch Ness monster, kinda long-necked, humpback, as well as a serpentine, kind of dinosaur-like body. The first reported sighting of Bessie dates back to 1973, when a duck hunter saw a large serpentine-like creature thrashing in the lake and startled by his gunshots. And since then, numerous sightings have been reported over the years. Some eyewitnesses claim to have seen the creature swimming close to their boats or even on the shore, while others have reported hearing strange, eerie sounds coming from the water. Despite many attempts to capture or study the creature, there is no concrete evidence of its existence. However, the legend of Bessie persists, and many people believe that there is something mysterious lurking beneath the surface of Lake Erie. When it comes to creatures that reside in the water, I gotta say, seems plausible. We don't spend a lot of time underwater, Lots could be lurking in those murky depths. You never know. Number 6, Mothman of Gallia County. Most of us have probably heard of the infamous Mothman. Large, winged, glowing red eyes. It was first reported in West Virginia in 1966, but one of the most famous sightings of this large flying insect was over the Silver Bridge that connected Point Pleasant, West Virginia to the village of Gallipolis, Ohio. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I think it's Gallipolis. This sighting happened just a year after the first reported Mothman sighting, and right around the time when the creature was spotted on the Silver Bridge, it collapsed. And some still believe that this mysterious cryptid was the one responsible. There have also been reported Mothman sightings before other big disasters, which has led some to speculate as to whether Mothman is a bad omen or if it simply appears as kind of like a warning of impending doom, bad or good. Orange eyes. Now, this is a Sasquatch type creature that could very well be the same type of creature as a couple others we'll be discussing on the list. There are many Sasquatch variations seen throughout Ohio, but this one is famous for, as you could probably imagine, it's got these glowing orange eyes. There have been reports of strange creatures with orange eyes lurking in Ohio, said to reside in the Riverside Cemetery before moving to the woods by Mill Lake. Witnesses described the creature as resembling a large bipedal humanoid with a muscular build and a hunched posture. Its eyes, once again, seem to emit an otherworldly glow. The creature is reportedly very fast and agile and has been known to vanish into thin air when pursued. Some locals believe that Orange Eyes is a Bigfoot type creature, but there are also those theories that maybe a kind of supernatural being or extraterrestrial entity as well. At number 4, we have Dogman. Most Dogman reports come out of Michigan, but there have been sightings in Ohio as well. According to witnesses, the Dogman is a bipedal, wolf-like creature that stands between 6 and 7 feet tall with a muscular build and a snarling dog-like face. The first reported sightings of the Dogman in Ohio occurred in the late 1980s. Since then, there have been numerous other sightings reported in the state. Witnesses have reported seeing the creature hunting in the woods, stalking prey, and even running across highways at high speeds. Some skeptics believe that the sightings, of course, may be misidentifications of known animals like bears or wolves, while others believe that the Dogman is a real undiscovered species that is yet to be officially documented by science. Number 3, the Crosswick Monster. Now, there's only one report of this cryptid, but it's quite the entertaining tale. It's like something out of a classic 1950s monster movie or something like that, and it's a pretty famous piece of Ohio cryptid folklore. The story goes that in 1882, two boys, Ed and Joe Lynch, began hearing strange sounds coming from the tall grass of a bush behind them. They were fishing, and then before they had time to think, a large four-legged lizard creature popped out from the bushes and began making its way toward them. The boys tried to make their escape, but it caught the 13-year-old Ed in its mouth and began dragging him towards a large hollowed-out tree. 3 men had heard the boys screaming and managed to make it to Ed's aid before he was pulled into the tree, although he was badly injured. A group of about 60 men were formed, armed with axes and clubs, and they tried to slay the beast, but the creature managed to escape, actually standing on its hind legs at one point. Pretty horrifying. The group chased the creature, which retreated into a hole under a large hill of rocks. The creature was never seen again. Described as black and white in color and roughly 12 feet in length. Number 2, the Minerva Monster. This has to be one of the most famous Sasquatch sightings in Ohio. In August of 1978, in the village of Minerva, the first sighting of the creature was reported by the Caton family, who'd seen a large hairy creature in the gravel pit outside of their property, looking to be about 300 pounds. Soon became known as the Minerva Monster and terrorized the Caton family on more than one occasion. They described seeing it peering through their kitchen window one night, awful, and when police came to investigate, they saw large footprints around their home with a terrible smell lingering in the air. The creature was also reported to have thrown rocks at their home one day, and they even reported seeing 2 large hairy bipeds on a hill by the strip mine near their property. The family has been adamant about what they saw ever since, and their story has remained consistent. It wasn't just the Catons who had run-ins with the large ape-like creature, though. Other locals began reporting seeing a similar creature in and around the Minerva area around the same time. And that's going to bring us to our number 1 spot, the Ohio Grassman. There's a very good chance that the Minerva Monster and Orange Eyes are the very same creature I'm describing here, as they're all big, all furry, ape-like creatures. Grassman is pretty much Ohio's nickname for Bigfoot, described as a large, hairy, bipedal creature standing between 7 and 9 feet tall. Grassman is said to have human-like face and a muscular build. Witnesses have reported hearing eerie vocalizations and howls coming from the woods, as well as seeing large footprints that they believe belong to the creature. The first reported sightings of the Ohio Grassman occurred in the late 1800s, but the creature gained widespread attention in the 1970s when multiple sightings were reported in the state. Since then, there have been numerous other sightings reported in the area, while some skeptics dismiss the sightings, of course, as misidentifications of, animals or even hoaxes. Others believe that the Grassman is real and he's an undiscovered species. So I don't know, what do you think? As always, Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Okay, coming into number 10, we have the Cursed Pillar of Augusta. If you have ever been to Augusta, you may have come across the Cursed Pillar in the lower market area of downtown. This is on the east side of 5th Street. The legend behind the pillar is varied depending on who tells it, but most stories say that an evangelical priest wanted to preach in the marketplace but was denied by the authorities. The legend says that he called down a tornado to destroy everything in the town except the spot he was standing at. The tornado came and the priest seemed to be standing by the pillar, which remained when allegedly everything else was destroyed. Ever since, anyone who has ever messed with or touched the pillar is said to have met a terrible or even grave misfortune. The pillar has a sign of its very own and people even visit the column every day to test their luck. I see. The pillar was damaged in 1935 and again in 1958, but patched up again. Sadly, it was destroyed in 2016 by a car that crashed into it, although no one claimed responsibility. The city has said that they will rebuild the monument, but nobody knows what has happened to the person that dealt it a fatal blow. Perhaps they too are lying in a pile of rubble. Basically, I guess they would be if the legends are anything to be believed. I don't know, what would you do if you were Georgia? Would you rebuild the pillow or just like leave it alone? Coming in at number 9, we have the Snickers Snatchers of Smyrna. I don't like an old bridge. I'm honestly very scared that they'll collapse as I walk, or worse, drive over them. Honestly, I don't want to be in a car in a ditch. This bridge, the Nickajack Creek Bridge in Smyrna, Georgia, was built in 1872. It's totally covered, so very dark, and it's only 1 lane in width. As you can see, it's already pretty creepy. Anyway, the legend goes that if you drive over the bridge at night and leave a Snickers chocolate bar on the bonnet of your car, the ghosts of children who drowned in the creek will be tempted from their watery graves. They'll come up and take the chocolate. That's the story anyway, but honestly, why Snickers? It seems that the chocolate is very tempting for the dead. Honestly, who knew? To be honest though, I think the bigger danger here is being crashed into as you park up on a covered bridge with room for just 1 lane of traffic. I wouldn't risk it. Have the Snickers yourself. Coming into number 8, we have the Smoke of Ellis Hotel. In 1946, there was a terrible blaze at the Winecoff Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia. In the early hours of the 7th of December, the deadliest hotel fire in US history blazed through a building that had previously been hailed as fully fireproof. A lot like with the so-called unsinkable Titanic, developers of the building had such confidence in the so-called flame retardant building that they didn't even include an automatic sprinkler system. They didn't include enough alarms or enough fire exits, meaning that a lot of the guests above the 3rd floor where the fire broke out were trapped. Sadly, 119 people died, with many people jumping out of the windows to their deaths. The building was repaired and renamed. It's now called the Ellis Hotel to try and disassociate it with the past tragedy. It seems though that the tragedy has unfortunately lingered. Still today, guests report smelling smoke and seeing spectres. Some even say that items are stolen from their rooms. It seems that some of the ghosts have no respect for personal property whatsoever. One of the ghosts said to haunt the building is a woman who was famously pictured jumping to her death to avoid the flames. Coming into number 7, we have Catherine of Mill House. Mill House in Roswell, Georgia is said to be haunted by an electricity-hating ghost by the name of Catherine. In the 1990s, a woman purchased the old mill cottage and wanted to turn the property into a business, but when she tried to renovate, she kept on returning to find the renovations had been disrupted. The weirdest incident came after she tried to have electricity installed. She came back home to find the house sopping wet, as if it had just been flooded. She came to the conclusion that actually maybe the building was haunted, and she called in a medium. The medium found the house was indeed haunted by not 1 but 5 women, all the wives of former mill workers. The medium convinced 4 of the women to cross into the afterlife, but the legend has it that the 5th, Catherine, simply wouldn't leave. She complained about fire in the walls, aka the electricity the new owner was trying to install. It seems that she flooded the house to try and get rid of the electricity. To this day, nobody has been able to install any electrics in the home. Coming into number 6, we have the Weeping Statue of Gracie. In the super spooky Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah, which is over 150 years old, there is a big creepy monument of a little girl called Gracie. Gracie Watson supposedly died of pneumonia aged just 6, and somewhere over the history of time after her death, people started leaving little gifts for the girl. She's said to actually really enjoy playing with her gifts at night, and often they can be seen to have been moved inexplicably. The urban legend goes that you should never touch or mess with Gracie's trinkets because she has become very attached to them. If you do touch them, she's said to cry blood out of frustration. Yikes. Some people even say that they can hear Gracie crying at night. Another graveyard legend at number 5, we have this stone statue of Corrine. In the same Bonaventure Savannah Memorial Graveyard, there is a statue of Corrine Elliott. If you ever see the statue though, you should never look it in the eye because the legend has it that you will turn to stone. The story goes that Corrine was denied the chance to marry her love, a man her family considered beneath her. Instead, they ordered that she marry someone else, someone better suited to her status. Corrine decided that she would rather die than marry a man she didn't love, so she reportedly rode her horse into a river the day before her wedding. Now she does have a creepy statue at the graveyard, and the story goes that her pupilless eyes will curse you. Coming into number 4, we have the Masquerade Vampire. The Masquerade nightclub in Atlanta is kind of creepy to look at from the outside. It's painted black and everything, but like whatever, it's just a club. Although, is it? Rumor has it that the nightclub is both haunted and the home of a vampire. The building dates back to the 1800s when it was a mill, but in the 1980s it opened as a club. The ghost or vampire in question is said to take the form of a tall man dressed in black. He's often spotted skulking around the club. It's also said that the spectre regularly turns off amplifiers. Some say they hear female screams coming from the back stairs. Now are they the screams of the vampire's victims? It is even rumored that several employees died from tuberculosis in the building. Coming into number 3, we have the Candler Oak Hanging Tree. Get a load of this spooky but majestic looking tree. It is over 300 years old, making it the oldest living landmark in the area. The tree in Savannah is on the property of the Savannah Law School. A rumor has it that the tree was used for hangings in the past, and that the last known hanging was in 1911 when a black man was lynched and murdered by a mob. It seems a number of people who have passed by the Candler Oak have seen apparitions hanging from the low branches of the tree. This is not what I need. Coming into number 2, we have the Ghosts of Moon River. Moon River Brewing Company is located in Savannah, Georgia. The building is very famous for sitting on the site of the first guest house in Savannah, the City Hotel. Now a microbrewery, the building has seen a lot of action. It is nearing 200 years old, so I can imagine it's, seen a bit in its time. It also used to house the first ever branch of the US Post Office for all of those interested. What a place. These days it isn't only the pint glasses that are full to the brim. The historic building is absolutely crawling with spectres. One of the more famous ghosts is said to be that of James Stark, who was shot in the building by Philip Minus amid a duel in 1832. He is said to remain on the second floor of the building, haunting for the rest of eternity. Other haunted areas include the women's toilets in the dining section of the brewery. Women have claimed to have been locked in the cubicles without reason, as if there's someone forcing it shut. The building is so haunted it even featured in The Ghost Hunters. Finally, coming into number 1, this actually made me feel very, very cold inside. We have the cursed Lake Lanier. There's always a cursed lake in these lists, isn't there? So Lake Lanier is in the north part of Georgia and is a man-made body of water rather than a natural lake. The reservoir provides water and hydroelectricity for the city of Atlanta and was made by the United States government in 1948. Unfortunately, the lake came at the cost of 250 families, 15 businesses, and 20 cemeteries, all of which were sunk by the government after forcing the family out. Therefore, at the bottom of the lake lies a small ghost town and a number of burial sites. Now, perhaps this is the explanation for the mysterious deaths near the body of water. It seems that the lake is considered by locals to be cursed, and I wouldn't want to mess with it. In 2011 alone, there were 20 mysterious deaths near the lake, and to this day, the numbers continue to be strangely high. Those who have survived accidents on the lake talk of feeling hands pulling them down to the bottom. Very, very, very strange, and honestly, very creepy. I think I'd give boating on this lake a big miss. Coming in at number 10, we have the Wendigo. The Wendigo is something that we like to talk about a lot on Life's Biggest Questions. The Wendigo is a lesson that cannibalism is never gonna end well. The legend of the Wendigo comes from the Algonquin people, which is actually relatively near to where I am here in Toronto. I've actually been to Algonquin National Park and I was scared of bears the first time I went, but the next time I will be aware of the Wendigo. The story of the Wendigo goes that once he was a lost hunter that during a particular particular harsh winter, and trust me, they do get very cold here in Canada, got really hungry. He couldn't find anything to hunt, he couldn't find anything to eat. This continued for days, for months. His hunger became so intense that he turned to cannibalism. After eating human flesh, he became a crazed monster and continued to roam in search of his next fleshy meal. Now the Wendigo, who is 15 feet tall, looks a little like this. Ooh. The Wendigo is said to roam free in the icy plains of Canada and the northern states of the USA, like Minnesota, Illinois, and upstate New York. The legend has legs too, literally. There have been several spates of Wendigo sightings over the past 150 or so years, most notably when a number of people from the Algonquin went missing in the 20th century. The Wendigo was to blame. The Wendigo is said to lure you away from civilization to icier plains and will then eat you alive. Hard no from me to Mr. Wendigo. Stay away. Do you want to meet the Native American Voldemort? Coming in at number 9, we have the legend of Two-Face. This is a morality lesson and a scary urban legend at the very same time. The legend of Two-Face, often called Sharp Elbows or Hester Voto Keo, is about not giving attention to bad things. The story is most popular among the Sioux people, and incantations can be found across a lot of First Nations groups. The story goes that the Two-Face creature is a bit of an attention hog, to put it lightly. They are a nasty presence that wants you to look at them. They will do anything to get your attention, but be warned, if you give in, if you look at it, if you give it the attention it craves, it will cut you. Actually, though, it will cut you. One legend is often told about a heavily pregnant Sioux woman. She heard a voice behind her, and intuition told her that she shouldn't look around. She was right. The strange voice tried even harder to get her to look, but still she did not. Later, she told her husband, and he was glad. He said that the voice had come from a malevolent creature that would appear to her 4 times. She must ignore it each and every time. If she successfully ignored it 4 times, it would leave her alone forever. Now it did appear twice more, and twice she successfully ignored it, but on the 4th time, things didn't go well. The 4th time came and she decided to have a peek at the creature. Curiosity got the better of her and she peered through a crack when she thought it was turned away. But what did she see? A ghoulish being with 2 faces and razor-sharp elbows. Its other face turned to look at her directly. It lurched out and cut her to shreds. Lesson being, never give in to negative voices no matter how hard they shout. They will destroy you. Coming in at number 8, we have skinwalkers. In Navajo culture, the legend of skinwalkers is enduring. In fact, the legend is so widely perpetuated that a lot of people outside of the Native American cultures are very scared of them too. Skinwalkers are said to be witches who ascend to their superhuman powers by sacrificing/murdering a close family member. Honestly, how awful. These skinwalkers can then take the form of an animal of their choosing, but they most commonly appear as wolves, owls, coyotes, foxes, and even crows. These witches are said to be extremely dangerous, and you do not want to encounter one for fear of invoking their wrath. What will their wrath do? Straight up murder, once again. These skinwalkers are said to be most commonly found stalking deserts in California, like Death Valley, the Mojave National Reserve, and Joshua Tree, so watch out. From skinwalkers to Skinwalker Ranch, up next at number 7. Some weird things have been happening at the so-called Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Native Americans in the area truly believe that the area is plagued and cursed by evil spirits, and well, they might actually be right. The ranch became notorious in the media when the Sherman family spoke out about their experience living there in the 1990s. Their stories involved strange lights, ghostly apparitions, and the tale of an invincible wolf that I found particularly interesting. It seems that the Sherman family came across what seemed like a friendly wolf. So friendly, it approached them from time to time. Sadly though, the wolf could not be trusted. It killed a number of their cattle, which are expensive to come by. Now this prompted the head of the Sherman family to shoot it with a .375 Magnum. Nothing. It was struck again. Nothing. The wolf was shot several times more, but it simply walked away. Was this an encounter with a real-life skinwalker? Maybe. Coming in at number 6, we have stick people. Beware the stick people. While they may seem like cheeky pests, they're actually pretty malicious when threatened. The stick people are a legend from the Salish who live in British Columbia. They believe that in the woods there are a tribe of mystical people, stick people. They're a lot like other native tribes, but they're very elusive and they have mystical powers. They communicate by using bird and animal sounds. In the woods, it is said that they will disorientate wanderers with mind control powers. Tricksters, sure. The stick people are said to enter villages at night and mess with tribes, stealing their nets, eating their food, or simply just pulling down men's clothing. Classic. However, you never want to encounter a stick person face to face. This is why young First Nations children are warned never to enter forests alone. If you come across a stick person, they will feel very threatened, and the next time they enter a settlement, they will do more than steal food. They will actually steal children. They'll take the children as punishment and raise them as slaves. Coming into number 5, we have ghost sickness. In Native American culture, it is possible for a person to fall ill with something called ghost sickness. Navajo legend has it that ghost sickness can strike if a deceased person is not buried with the right rituals. If that is the case, the spirit of the deceased can become disruptive and make a living person ill. With ghost sickness, the sufferer will start having terrible dreams about the person who's died. They will become obsessed with their death. They will feel depressed and also physically weak. They may also start to hear voices. According to legend, the only way to recover from ghost sickness is to undergo a ritual performed by a religious leader, and often make adjustments to the burial of the dead to satisfy them. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the cause of ghost sickness. Up next at number 4, we have the chindi. So the chindi is said to be bad energy left over from a person who has died. The chindi is produced when a person takes their last breath. Actually, a lot of First Nations people believe that it is much better for people to die out in the open, as it leaves more space for the chindi to disperse. Dying inside a house practically dooms that building to being haunted forever. The Navajo are so wary of invoking chindi that will actually get rid of a deceased person's possessions. Even saying a deceased person's name is a certain way to summon their bad energy. Just don't do it. Coming into number 3, we have the legend of the dust devils. Navajo people are watchful and wary of dust. Why? Well, because they're actually spirits interacting with the land in the form of a little whirlwind. Whether it's benevolent or malevolent depends on the direction the dust or dirt is spinning. In Navajo folklore, if you see dust spinning in a clockwise direction, everything's fine. But if it spins counterclockwise, well, you better have your wits about you, as you are in the presence of an evil entity. Giant disembodied heads, anyone? Sure. Coming in at number 2, we have the legends of the flying head. The flying head legend is most popular in Iroquois and Wyandot culture. Flying heads are thought to be produced from cannibals or from battles wherein people have physically lost their heads. Flying heads are giant, ravenous beings with neck-length hair. Do you want to see a depiction? I'm kind of here for them. I can imagine myself as like a giant ravenous head sometimes. Some descriptions even have them with bat wings, and they're said to have an insatiable hunger, so insatiable that they're often led to eat people. Nonetheless, no man-made weapon can kill them. The only way to be rid of them is to trick them into eating hot coals. Easier said than done, I think. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the owls. I really like this tale of how owls were created, and it's pretty scary and may make you feel not so great about our murderous feathery friends. As told by the Yakama, the story goes that there was once 5 sisters who lived in a cave. These sisters were no normal humans. In fact, they would eat vile things like frogs, lizards, snakes, and mice, things that other First Nations people simply wouldn't eat. Some even said that they would eat tribes people if they took a disliking to them. Were these 5 sisters the native equivalent of witches? Quite possibly. They seem to be in touch with a lot of bad energy and cause a lot of people a lot of problems. Luckily for the other tribes though, one by one the women died. Finally, everybody breathed a sigh of relief as the final sister drowned. You would think that would have been the end of it, but no. From one of her eyes, it is said that all owls were created. Sure, because owls. Now when you see owls, apparently they are a small part of the evil 5th sister, part of her soul that's always watching and waiting. But for what? Owls. Who knew?
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Blue Flame Ghost. The story goes that in the 1930s, a woman lived in Ohio's Sugar Grove. She was young, happy, and liked by everyone. She fell for a young man who had a terrible temper, and the couple were often seen arguing in the town. Over time, the locals noticed her changing. She never smiled anymore and began to grow cold and weary. One night, the couple were parked beside a bridge when, naturally, an argument broke out. This time, it was worse than usual though. In a fit of anger, the young woman pulled out a knife and stabbed her fiance's throat. She kept slashing until his head came off. She herself was bleeding from the struggle. She staggered out of the car and back down the hill carrying her fiance's head. She eventually collapsed and died at the bottom of the hill, where she was found by locals the next day. Since then, the old bridge has been replaced by a new concrete one. However, some still say that on certain nights, if you stand on the bridge and call out the woman's name, her glowing blue spirit will appear at the top of the hill and move towards you. What you do at that point is honestly up to you, but given the vengeful state in which she died, most people don't stick around. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Defiance Werewolf. This is a very famous one. The people of Defiance in Ohio have claimed that for the past 45 years or so, they've been terrorized by a werewolf. It was first sighted in 1972. Over the summer, there were many sightings of a rampaging, hair-covered beast on 2 legs. It was said to have a muzzle and was always covered in rags. The local media went into a frenzy, and even the police opened up a case file on the sightings. There have been many sightings since then. Many of them were around a series of old railroad tracks in the town, usually late at night. One of the first sightings was by a Mr. Davis. Now he said, "I was connecting an air hose between 2 cars and was looking down. I saw these huge hairy feet. Then I looked up and he was standing there with that big stick over his shoulder. When I started to say something, he took off for the woods." His friend Mr. Jones was with him at the time. He said, "At first I thought the whole thing was a big joke. When I saw how hairy and woolly it was, that was enough for me." Next up at number 8 now, we have Brubaker Bridge. According to legend, in the 1930s there was a brutal 1-car accident on this bridge over Sam's Run Creek, Butler County. The bridge is in a very rural area and nobody actually discovered the crash victims until later that night when a local farmer passed by. The farmer went to get help and a total of 12 bodies were recovered. They were eventually identified and given proper burials. That wasn't the end of things though. Shortly after, the farmer who originally discovered the bodies claimed that while crossing the bridge one night after, his car suddenly cut out. He said that he heard 13 knocks on his car, then a hissing noise before suddenly the car just came back to life. Locals say that this is the spirit of the 13th victim, whose body was never recovered. The spirit is still said to haunt those who pass over the bridge, hoping they will be the ones to finally find its body and give them a proper burial so that they may pass on peacefully. Next up at number 7 now, we have Stony Creek Cemetery. The story goes like this. In 1825, the local caretaker in Stony Creek Cemetery in Adams County made a discovery. At the bottom of a large tree was the body of a young man. It didn't take much to figure out the cause of death, as the man's head was completely missing. Although it's hard to beat that in terms of strangeness, there was one other thing. The crime scene was clean of any blood around this headless body. The police determined the murder must have taken place somewhere else before the perpetrator then dumped the body in the cemetery. Rumours began to spread that the head had not been cut off but rather ripped off by something extremely powerful. The case remained open and unsolved for many years before entering books of folklore. There are those that say that some nights a misty figure appears under a tree in the cemetery, the ghost of this unidentified man, unable to find peace until his murder is solved. Moving on to number 6 now guys, we have Patterson Tower. There are a number of theories about the origin of this strange tower, thought to be built by a John D. Patterson many years ago. According to legend, a group of teenagers in the 1960s took refuge in the tower during a thunderstorm. As the storm raged on, a lightning bolt hit the top of the tower. Electricity surged down the metal stair rail and electrocuted 2 of the teenagers, killing them almost instantly. They say that in the weeks afterwards, you could still see their charred outlines on the tower wall. Officials blocked off the tower from dark tourists by placing metal plates across the door. Visitors still just ripped them off though to see what was inside. Legend now says that on stormy nights, the shadowy spirits of the teenagers who died can be seen in the tower. A bright bolt of lightning will illuminate their ghosts, making them glow as if they had just been hit by lightning. When the storm fades, so do they. Until the next time. Coming at number 5 now, we have Little Sugar Creek. The town of Bellbrook is sometimes referred to as Ohio's Sleepy Hollow because of all the ghostly legends that originated there. A man called James Buckley ran a sawmill there many years ago. He lived in a small cabin and grew his business to great heights, becoming the wealthiest man in the town. One night, his newfound wealth attracted some robbers. When authorities finally arrived to help him, they found Buckley's headless body outside. The murder was never solved. People say the cabin was haunted then by his spirit. Those who ventured there say they've been confronted by a headless ghost, his arms outstretched as if begging for help. In time, the sawmill was demolished, but that didn't bring an end to the sightings. Locals still say that if you wander down to Little Sugar Creek, where the sawmill once stood, you can still see the ghost of James Buckley, unable to pass on peacefully while the case of his brutal murder has been left cold. Moving on to number 4 now, we have Otterbein Cemetery. This one is also known as Bloody Horseshoe Grave. During the 1840s, an Ohioan called James Henry was involved with 2 women at the same time, Rachel Hodge and Mary Angle. He wanted to know which one to marry. One night while riding home, he fell asleep on his horse. He awoke to find his horse had not taken him home, but had instead stopped in front of Mary Angle's house. He took this as a sign, and soon he and Mary were married. As his wedding gift to her, he gave her the horse that brought them together. They lived happily, but in 1845, Mary died from one of the many prevalent diseases at the time. She was buried in Otterbein Cemetery. Henry began courting Rachel Hodge, and eventually the two were married. He gave her the same horse as a wedding gift. They hadn't been married long before locals noticed something strange about Mary's tombstone. There was a glowing outline of a horseshoe on it. James took this as a sign that Mary was displeased with his new marriage. They said he was cursed. One night, witnesses heard strange noises and lights coming from the cemetery. The next morning, James was found dead in his barn with the mark of a horseshoe on his forehead. His death was ruled an accident, as Henry had been alone in the barn at the time, all alone except for one other creature, a horse. Even today, they say a strange horseshoe mark is still visible on Mary's tombstone, and that on some nights you can hear the sound of hooves trotting up the cemetery road. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Buxton Inn. This place has been going since 1812, making it one of the oldest inns in Ohio. In the mid-1800s, Major Buxton, after whom the inn was named, took control of the inn. There have been reports of ghosts there ever since. Many of the ghosts alleged to haunt the inn are said to be of previous owners. However, there's also strange knockings people have heard coming from the basement where the stagecoach drivers would have stayed. The door to that same basement is known to open and close by itself, and there have even been reports of footsteps coming up and down the stairs there. Major Buxton's spirit is said to be a shadowy figure, often sighted in the dining room. Another owner, Orrin Granger, appears as an elderly woman wearing old-fashioned breeches who is said to steal pies from the kitchen. There's also the lady in blue, who died in the inn and is recognizable by her distinct perfume. There's even a phantom cat that enters people's rooms at night in much the same way it did when it was alive. Next up at number 2 now, we have Old Raritan. The story goes that as European settlers first began to arrive in the Ohio Valley, wolf attacks on livestock became more and more frequent. Farmers began to hunt down the wolves, possibly to the point of extinction, but none of them could have predicted what came next. One wolf in particular always managed to escape the farmers. A huge grey one became known as Old Raritan. Farmers often reported seeing him and his mate wandering through the woods, but they never could corner him. Eventually, they became the only wolves that remained. One night, the wolves were trapped with their backs against Big Rock, a famous landmark. The hunters opened fire and brought the female down. Just as the hunters set their dogs loose to finish her off, a loud cry echoed through the woods. Old Raritan leapt in front and fought the dogs off. The hunters opened fire and wounded him too. Eventually, they called off their dogs. Old Raritan dragged his now dead mate up to the top of Big Rock. Once there, he let out a thunderous howl across the backdrop of the moon and then slumped down beside his mate. All was quiet, but not forever. On certain nights, locals say you can still hear a painful howl, and that if you head to the top of Big Rock, you'll be faced with the ghost of Old Raritan, still ready to fight in his afterlife. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Bloody Bridge. Sometimes you can just tell from these titles where these stories are heading. This bridge lies just outside of Spencerville, crossing the Miami-Erie Canal. According to legend, the bridge was the site of a grisly murder in 1854. In the years before that, a rivalry grew between 2 local men, Bill Jones and Jack Billings. Both had fallen for a woman called Minnie Warren. In the end, Minnie chose Jack, sending Bill into a fit of rage. One night in 1854, Minnie and Jack began to cross the bridge on their way home from a party. At the other end, though, stood Bill. He was holding an axe. They didn't have time to run. Bill took one swing and severed Jack's head clean off. Minnie screamed and jumped off the bridge and into her watery grave. Bill then disappeared until his skeleton was found years later in a well. Was it suicide or revenge from the couple's family? Either way, the years since then have seen reports of ghostly images of the murdered couple on the bridge. Some even say that when the water gets dark enough, you can look over the bridge and see Minnie Warren's face staring right back at you in horror. We're jumping right into the deep end with our number 10, the Mothman. Let's go back to November 12th, 1966. 5 men were digging a grave at a cemetery in Clenadin when they claimed they saw a man-like figure fly out of the trees and over their heads. 3 days later, 2 young couples from Point Pleasant told police they saw a large creature with red glowing eyes in their car headlights. They described it as a large flying man with 10-foot wings. It was following them near an old World War II munitions plant. The legend of the Mothman was born. In the days after, more people reported seeing him. 2 firemen described it as a large bird with red eyes. About 90 miles away, a man from Salem said he saw a creature in the back of his barn with 2 red circle eyes like bicycle reflectors. For the next year, everyone was on edge, expecting to see the Mothman swooping down on them at any moment. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. Now, engineers blamed a defect in the suspension chain. Others said the Mothman sightings had something to do with it. As the years went by, experts tried to explain away all the different sightings, saying it was hallucinations or sleep paralysis. The Mothman story went cold for about 50 years. Then, in November 2016, WCHS TV published a photo from an anonymous man that people claimed was the Mothman. See for yourself what you make of this famous urban legend picture. If you're excited to play the next Fallout game, it might not be that long till you meet the Mothman for yourself. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Snarly Yow. Some call this the Vanishing Dog, the Black Dog, or even the Dog Fiend. Whatever people in West Virginia call it though, this phantom dog has been seen by a lot of people. It's described as large, black, and teeth-bearing, appearing in front of people's cars on the dark mountain roads, but when they hit it and get out to check, the dog has disappeared into thin air. It was first sighted in the early 1800s, where it would chase people on horseback, in carriages, or donkey carts. It has continued this habit into modern times, only now it can be seen keeping pace with cars going at 55 miles per hour. If be told, locals don't really know how fast this thing can actually go. Although many people have reported seeing the creature, it has never actually harmed anyone as of yet. This kind of unnerves some people though, who worry, what does it really want from the people it terrorizes? Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Sheep Squatch. This one is also known as the White Creature, a monster said to roam the Kanawha Valley. It's been described as a bear with the shape of a dog, if you can imagine that. It has huge saber-like fangs. Its wool is a dirty white color, hence the sheep part of its name. Despite its lumbering appearance, the creature is fast, moving at lightning speed. Perhaps what's most creepy is its tendency to switch from 4 legs to 2 when it moves, making it seem very human-like. Its screams in the night have been compared to the sound of someone being murdered. Then there are the attacks. Here's where things get really weird. People always say that the creature jumps on them like a wolf, sinking its teeth right into their flesh, making them howl out in pain, but then when the attack is over, they look down to find there is not a single mark on their body. That's better news than an actual mortal wound, I guess, but most people who have seen the Sheep Squatch hope to never again. Next up at number 7 now, we have the Flatwoods Monster. Some also call this the Green Monster or the Phantom of Flatwoods. The legend of it began in 1952 after a group of children claimed they saw a UFO crash behind a hill not far from the town. They went out and told Kathleen May, a local hairdresser, who came with them to inspect the crash site. From the top of the hill, they saw a pulsing red light. Then their flashlights landed on what they described as a man-like figure with a round red face surrounded by a pointed hood-like shape. They said he was 10 foot tall. His eyes emitted greenish orange light. His body was dark green in colour. Kathleen May said it had small claw-like hands and a head that resembled the ace of spades. According to the group, it made a hissing sound as it approached them. One of the kids dropped the flashlight in fear and they all fled the scene. Some have said the sighting was nothing more than a common barn owl, but many in the town believe it to be true. Even the welcome sign says Flatwoods is the home of the Green Monster. Next up at number 6 now, we have the Grafton Monster. As the name might suggest, this comes from the old railroad town of Grafton. There may not be room for a mysterious creature among the many buildings and houses there, but the place is surrounded by dense woodland, and that's where locals say the Grafton Monster lurks. Ever since the 1960s, people have reported seeing a man-like creature resembling Bigfoot or the skunk ape. They say it stands between 7 and 9 feet tall and is cloaked in pale skin that is slick to the touch, kind of like a seal or dolphins. Local farmers reported it the most, saying it tears down their fences and strips their trees of fruit. Those who have got close enough described it as being able to run extremely fast and having a foul odour. Perhaps the strangest description, although rarer than the rest, is that the Grafton monster is headless. Others say witnesses are mistaken and it only appears headless because it tucks its head low to its chest. Some say you'll know it's near when it lets out a low whistle through the trees. Next up now at number 5 we have the Bunny Man. This one sounds cute, right? You guys might have thought we were taking a quick break from scary halfway through the video. Or no, it's just getting worse. The Bunny Man legend began with 2 incidents in Fairfax County in 1970. The first came from Air Force Cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée. On October 9th, the couple were returning from a football game around midnight. They parked up to visit a relative when out of nowhere a figure ran up to the back of their car and smashed the front passenger window in. They looked up to see a man in a white suit with long bunny ears. The Bunny Man screamed that they were on private property and trespassing. The couple sped away and later found a hatchet that was used to smash the window on the floor of their car. 10 days later, a construction man called Paul Phillips was on the same road. He approached a man standing on the porch of an unfinished home. He described him as wearing a grey, black and white bunny costume. The Bunny Man began chopping at a porch post with a long-handled axe, saying, "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you on the head." The police investigation was closed due to the lack of evidence, but more than 50 other people came forward claiming to have seen the Bunny Man, many of them on that same stretch of road. Even to this day, locals have reported seeing freshly skinned rabbit carcasses hanging from the overpass of what is now known as Bunny Man Bridge, a sure sign that this axe-wielding fiend is nearby, waiting to bust you on the head. Next up at number 4 now, we have Mammy Thurman. On June 22nd, 1931, the body of a young woman was found slain near the town of Rogan. Her neck was broken, her throat cut from ear to ear, and she had been shot twice in the head at close range. The motive or culprit was a complete mystery. The whole town was shocked. A local handyman was convicted of the crime, but there was still a lot of questions. Her death certificate states that she was buried in Logan Memorial Park, but her funeral home records said her body was transported to Kentucky. However, the cemetery in Kentucky has no record of her interment. One night after her funeral, it was also said that a local businessman paid $1,000 to move her body to a different location altogether. To this day, it remains a mystery where exactly she was buried. According to local folklore, many claim that her ghost now wanders the hills, searching for the person who took her life, as the handyman was not to blame. Others said she waits on that same road, waiting for justice. Many have seen her there, saying she hitchhikes with truck drivers only to vanish into thin air. People who park on the hill say they felt her push the car up. Nice, but no thanks. Next up at number 3 now, we have Screaming Jenny. The story goes like this. Along some railroads in West Virginia, there were some abandoned old storage sheds. The poor had moved in there to escape the harsh winters. A sweet woman called Jenny lived there. She had fallen on hard times, never had enough to eat, and the small fires barely kept her alive. Still, she did everything she could to help those around her. On one cold autumn evening, she sat shivering over her fire when a spark flew out and lit her wool skirt on fire. She was so busy eating her broth that she didn't notice until the fire began to scorch right down to her skin. She leapt up and threw the broth all over herself, but that didn't stop the fire. She began screaming along the tracks, begging for help as the flames engulfed her whole body. She ran for the nearby train station, hoping someone there could help, but by now she was a glowing inferno, a ball of fire that looked barely human. In her pain and confusion, she didn't see the train rounding the curve ahead of her. Her scream stopped as the train mowed her down. The station crew found her dead, still burning. They put her out, gave her a funeral, and buried Jenny in the local graveyard. She was quickly forgotten. Then, a month later, another train was rounding the curve on the tracks when it hit another screaming ball of fire. The crew expected to see another mangled body burning, but this time there was nothing there. It's been that way ever since. Train drivers in the area say they still see Screaming Jenny, especially on the anniversary of her death. It seems she's locked in an eternal loop, still desperate for the help she needed in her final moments. Next up at number 2 now, we have the Ogua. Quite simply, the Ogua is a river monster. It's said to lurk in the waters of the Monongahela River in Marion County. Its legend goes back to Native American tribes who lived along the riverbanks there many years ago. It's said to be a serpentine creature of up to 500 pounds in weight, with a reddish brown colour and deadly razor sharp teeth. It's also amphibious and has been known to clamber onto land if it needs to. It stays hidden in the waters during the day, coming onto land at night to hunt for prey. Apparently, it even hunts deer. Yeah, fully grown deer. It waits along their paths and then thrashes them into submission with its tail before dragging them into the river to devour. Of course, if it can bring down a deer, it wouldn't have much trouble with a human. Some people don't even go near the places where it's sighted, at least not alone. And finally, number 1 now, we have Droop Mountain. On this mountain, there was once a very fierce battle during the American Civil War. Many lost their lives, and the blood spilled that day is said to have soaked into the very mountain itself, changing it forever. They say the cries of war still linger on Droop Mountain, forever lost in time. Visitors have reported that something just feels off when you're up there. At night, there is no mistaking it at all. One woman who was raised beside the mountain reported seeing a man standing up on the old battlefield. His body glowed in the darkness, and to her astonishment, he had no head. Whenever they shone a light on him, he disappeared. Another time, the woman was walking with her husband and cousins when the whole group stopped in their tracks. Up there again on the old battlefield was a transparent soldier on his horse. The soldier seemed to notice them before turning away and vanishing into the trees. Even skeptics have reported seeing the figure of a headless man drifting along. Those who have got close say he is wearing a Confederate uniform. Now others say his head isn't actually missing, it's just been shot off. To be honest, I'm not really sure which one of those is scarier. But either way, don't think I'd head up Droop Mountain at night by myself.